Mr. Trump has issued around 50 executive orders and directives, laying the ground for what will be the agenda under his administration. Now let's look at what he has signed so far. Mr. Trump pardoned around 1,500 people who stormed the U.S. Capitol on the 6th of January 2021. They're trying to stop lawmakers confirming his defeat in elections in 2020. 6 defendants will have their sentences shortened. The new president has declared illegal immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border a national emergency, moving to end automatic citizenship granted to children born in America to undocumented migrants. On trade, Mr. Trump has ordered the government to assess the feasibility of creating, as he has mentioned earlier, an external revenue service to collect tariffs and duties from those who import into the United States. In an expected move, Mr. Trump pulled out from the Paris Climate Agreement. In fact, this is the second time he's doing that, putting at risk climate goals within the pact signed and agreed on in 2015. His rationale for that, it is his, quote, his administration's policy to put the American people first. Mr. Trump has also withdrawn from the World Health Organization. He says the Global Health Agency mishandled the COVID-19 pandemic along with other health crises. But to many Americans' relief, the president delayed the enforcement of a ban on TikTok by 75 days. The popular short video app was supposed to shut down on the 19th of January on national security concerns. But Mr. Trump has asked his attorney general not to enforce the law, to give his administration, quote, an opportunity to determine the appropriate course forward. And for more, Nick Harper joins us live from Washington, D.C. Nick, it's relatively straightforward to sign an executive order. There are, of course, all sorts of legal barriers to these actually being implemented. Have there been any challenges so far to Mr. Trump's executive orders?
That's right, Wei Su. Yeah, lots of action, lots of orders, but already lots of challenges against some of those orders. We saw Donald Trump sign a whole raft of new measures on his very first day in office. The big problem is that legal experts and scholars are already saying that some of those things go beyond the presidential powers that he has. Now, he says these orders are all about the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. But one of those big ones, ending both birthright citizenship, has already been challenged. Now, at the moment, if you're born in the US, then you get US citizenship. Already, a group representing Indonesian migrants based in the state of New Hampshire have come forward with a legal challenge against Donald Trump, saying the president has no authority to redefine American citizenship. And remember, this birthright citizenship is something that's written into the Constitution and has been backed up by Supreme Court rulings in the past. We've also seen at least 3 lawsuits against the newly created agency, DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency. Donald Trump wants to cut about $2 trillion of what he sees as wastage here in Washington, D.C. He wants to restructure some of the federal agencies. 3 lawsuits already against it, saying that it violates transparency laws for government advisory groups. So there is this possibility that even though these orders have been signed, they could now get tied up in the courts for many months, maybe even years to come.
Nick, quite a few of these orders would have a significant impact on U.S. foreign policy. In fact, the first cabinet member to be confirmed after Mr. Trump was inaugurated was, of course, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Now, earlier we spoke to our China correspondent, and the Chinese Foreign Ministry has singled out Mr. Rubio as an individual who could have a clear impact on the direction of U.S. foreign policy. How do you see foreign policy being carried out under Mr. Rubio as Secretary of State?
Yeah, very interesting pick. Marco Rubio has been the senator for Florida since 2011. He even ran against Donald Trump to try and become the president back in 2016 when Donald Trump won for the first time. He is the first high-level cabinet position that has been confirmed. He's also the first Latino to hold that position of Secretary of State. He's got a busy day ahead. Today, he'll be meeting with the foreign leaders of the Quad grouping, the foreign ministers from Australia, Japan and India, all meeting here in Washington, D.C. But as you mentioned, he has some very strong views on China. Seen as a China hawk during his confirmation hearing last week, he defined China as the most potent and dangerous adversary this nation has ever confronted. And he has laid out plans in the past that suggests that the US should be pushing back more forcefully against China. He also has hardline positions against Iran, Cuba and Venezuela. And when it comes to that conflict in Ukraine, he has suggested that Ukraine and Russia must make concessions to end the conflict, even if that means giving up territory. And when he was a senator over the last couple of years, he voted against Ukraine aid. So we're likely to see many changes, many hardline policies potentially now coming out of the State Department.
Oh, thanks. So not just China, but of course, Ukraine and Russia as well. Nick Harper reporting live there from Washington, D.C.